it's good evening. Well, it's good evening here, and it's good afternoon somewhere else, and probably good morning somewhere else again. And welcome back to GRIDwrap. And today we have with us Foxxe Wilder, who is an OpenSim owner, and we have Chimera Cosmos as well, who is owns a sim on Jocadia and has been around Second Life and Jocadia for quite some time. And it's a hypergrid adventurer, I believe, so more of that later. We don't have Tessa with us, or the advertised Chris Hart. Chris Hart is ill at the moment. We wish her all the best in getting well. So what we want to talk about today, ladies, is the open grid experience from a user point of view. And I thought that you two would be really well positioned to talk about that. Welcome, I should say, first to Chimera.
Thank you.
And to Foxxe.
Hello, thank you.
There we go. So, Foxxe, let me come to you first. I know you're in Second Life. You've been in Second Life for an awfully long time. You're very well ensconced here. What made you venture forth onto the open grid?
Well, to be honest, I kind of got bored. I mean, when Second Life's industry started to slow down to almost a dead stop, I started reaching out to other grids and looking for other things to do. Normally, I do some building here and there, playing around with scripts, etc., but like nothing too intense.
And what about you, Chimera?
Well, I always like to check out whatever's new and whatever's coming over the horizon. And I noticed when Reaction Grid, I think it was starting, I got acquainted with Kyle and indirectly, and they were going to focus on education, and that's my focus. And so I joined there pretty early on, but I just went off and on now and then. It wasn't until just a few months ago when Jocadia Grid got started as an outgrowth of Jocadia that I went over, spent more time.
Okay, and are you finding, I'm going to stay with you, Chimera, because I know that your time may be limited. What are you finding are the main differences, if at all there are any differences?
Well, when I first went over, of course, it was just having an account and going over to look around the Sims. And at that time, I suppose that was a couple of years ago, there was a lot more trouble with falling through the ground and that sort of thing. And that seems to be better. But Jokay, I don't know if you know Jokay Wollongong. She's been here for a long time in Second Life and is a great landlady. I picked oceanfront property over there on Jocadia right from the beginning and liked the international aspects. So when she opened the Jocadia grid, she started what she calls multi-grid rentals. So even before we got our sim, which we fairly recently did, she gave all of the people who rented from her on Jocadia and Second Life a small plot over on Jocadia grid. So that's her way of encouraging you to explore the other grids. So I had that small plot, and I was building it. And I found, when I first started to make some primitive things, that things were a little wackier. It wasn't as stable. Building was hard. So I built some things on Second Life and exported them through Imprudence and that. And I still have to smooth the land, or else I'll fall through it. But then that might be my poor terraforming technique. You never know. So just, I think, small things like that. Fewer people, but now that's starting to change. A lot more people are coming over.
And what about you, Foxxe? I mean, you have suggested to me that it was a steep learning curve.
Oh yeah, this started off with when I first created Vulpinia, the name of my sim in OS Grid. I initially started it off as a standalone sim. So I had to recreate my avatar and actually learn how to create hair. Now, I'm not very good at hair at all. So, like, the best I could do was something very basic. And getting scripts to run, oh, good God. You can't just, you can't just import some freebie script from Second Life. I found out the hard way, and hope it to work. In fact, most of the scripts from Second Life don't work.
Okay. So, Chimera, how did you do with scripts? I mean, were you used to scripting before, or Or maybe it's not the case where you are.
Well, I wasn't very used to scripting before. I've learned things kind of as we go along. I like to learn new things and how to do them, but I always say I'm a pseudo techie rather than a real techie. So anything I do with scripting has got to be, here's the script. I can find a spot where, I'll change that. I'm not ever going to be someone who writes them from scratch. So I suppose it was being on OpenSim and wanting to try more things that weren't available that actually pushed me to do a little bit more, to look at teleport scripts and others. But bringing over always ones that were open source that I could copy from Second Life or from the web. I did go, the other thing I did before coming to Jocadia Grid was whenever I heard of a new grid, I would create an account and go check it out. So I've been to InWorlds, I've been to the New World Grid, I've been to, you name it, just about every grid that people have heard much about. I have an account, I've gone to it. But until Jocadia Grid came along, and with the pricing that was very favorable for getting a whole sim there, it was more of a drop in and visit kind of thing. But I can relate to the hair thing. What I have over there is some Reaction Grid hair, because Jocadia Grid is actually hosted on Reaction Grid servers. So I have Robin's, I think that's her name, Robin's hair. I did bring over my shape numbers from Second Life. So I recreated the same shape that I have in Second Life.
Yes, I'm doing that in Spot On actually at the moment, and I'll be doing that in other grids as well.
Yeah, it's about the only thing you can directly port over.
So, Foxxe, what made you decide to do a standalone?
Well, I wasn't quite sure what grids there were available just to hook up, and whether or not I could hook up with another grid for nothing or not. Like my finances in the real world are extremely limited. I live on a disability pension, and so naturally I have to make sure everything's free, preferably. I'd love to be able to bring Vulpinia into Second Life, but these guys just charge too much just to set up.
Okay, so Chimera, presumably there aren't quite the same restraints on you, but do you find that people are helpful? When I first came into Second Life, one of the things that kept me here was the mental system that they had here, and the fact that I had never found such help so easily available, people offering it to me, just coming up to me and saying, oh, you know, do this, do that, or have a go at that, or what are you making here, and then offering advice. I mean, do you find that in Jocadia, for example?
Well, it's always been the case in Jocadia, whether it's Jocadia in Second Life or whether it's over Jocadia Grid. That's the kind of community it is, and that's what I've liked about it. Although, as I said, I hadn't done a lot of scripting and building, so I hadn't asked for a lot of that kind of help. The other grids were, I went to OS Grid really early on and was over there, but the population density was lower. Now, because of the education price change, a lot of educators are kind of flowing over. So there's a bigger community growing on Reaction Grid. There are a lot more people on Jocadia Grid. So I didn't find that many reasons to actually come over other than just to kind of check out what was happening until fairly recently. And I've always been one to say, I think it should be a multi-grid world. I'm not somebody who's saying, oh, screw LL, I'm going to get out of here. I think we have so many connections over here that I think it would be a real shame to break the connections. So I think of myself as having at least dual citizenship, if not more.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, isn't it? It's like, I find that my fantasy is in, not in Second Life, in real life, that actually everywhere I go, and I travel quite a lot for work, I'd like to have a house there. But actually, I could do that here. You know what I mean? I could actually do that here, which I find tremendously freeing. Foxxe, are you lonely on your standalone grid?
I was.
Sim, I should say. Yeah.
I was for quite a long time. In fact, when I'm now actually online in OS Grid, like the sim is up and running on a second machine I have, which really doesn't take very much computer power. Linden Labs, but I found it astoundingly simplistic to set up. I would have thought there was a heck of a lot more to it. But mind you, I also got a background in building, some background in clothes, some background in this and that. I've been pretty much had my hand in almost everything.
Mm.
Short of actual creation of scripts, but even then, like Chimera, I pick and poke at the scripts that I do have in order to get them working to what I need.
Mm. So you need to be a bit of a polymath, do you think, both of you?
Somewhat, yeah.
I think that I'm teaching chemistry for all the years that I did. Visualization and 3D visualization has always been really important and really interesting to me. So I think the concept of a grid and maps and navigation and 3D construction, it comes kind of naturally to me, even though I don't have a lot of Photoshop or design skills or anything like that. The 3D part I can do, and some people struggle with that, I think.
So, okay, Chimera, I know that you've been on Pathfinder Lester's Hypergrid Adventures. Is that what it is? I mean, it sounds... I always imagine, I must go on it, because I'm imagining Pathfinder striding out with his hiking boots and his stick, across as an intrepid explorer, followed by lots of people with rucksacks on. What actually happens on these Hypergrid adventures?
Well, Pathfinder is a real center to the education community now. In fact, I remember I was telling you about the tutorials. This is the link. It should be, yes. I just put it in regular chat. This is the link to where I've been collecting the common tutorials. And the very last one I did is one I made to explain what we did when we went with Pathfinder on a hypergrid tutorial to FrancoGrid. So it's an interesting process. When Pathfinder, there was a kind of a famous meeting of educators I'm actually missing it right now. It happens every Thursday at 4:30 over on the Montclair sim. And Pathfinder was there being interviewed, and Joe Kay was there. And Joe Kay, actually, I don't know if you know this, but Pathfinder is the one who had to tell Joe Kay that she had to take down the education blog because it had SL in the name. No. So she was very hurt by that and was pretty angry and thought he hadn't supported her for a long time. But on that day, a couple of months ago, they kind of made up again, I would say, to the point where he went over and toured her new grid on Jocadia Grid, and he got a sim. So the first sim that Pathfinder had off of Second Life, and this is after he'd left, of course, been pushed out. So that was one of the things that attracted me really to try a sim. First was Joe Kay's great pricing. It's only $20 US a month for a whole sim. And that's, her hosting it. And Pathfinder had one just 2 sims away, and I went, hey, how great can that be? The education former Linden is there, and lots of people are coming. So he has made his island into a beautiful place. It's called Pathlandia. And when you go there, almost everything is free to take. So he takes very seriously the sharing thing. So he has a lot of builds. And what he does is 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, people gather there. He has a Google Docs, Google Calendar thing. I usually go on Sunday afternoons late. I guess it would be 2 o'clock, maybe Second Life time, something like that. So people will gather at his sim, sit around and introduce themselves and chat for about half an hour. And then Path has picked out some place to go, some other grid, and he writes up a note card saying, okay, here's what you got to do. Here's how usually there are 2 jumps, Jocadia and Reaction Grid